So how do you create a new object in JavaScript? Hmm? So like curly braces, right? This is called object literal. And what is an array literal? It's that if you say, then it's an array literal. And if you like, this is string literal. So when you use this shorthand expression to create something of that type and the language supports it, it's generally called literal expression. So this is the way if you have to create objects, you have to use curly braces. You can also do it new object. Similarly, you can do new array. I don't know if you can do new in string or not. Can you do? New string. Yes, it does work. It gives you. So you can also do, I think, new integer, new number. You can do this. So this is using the class name that you are creating a new instance of that class. But shortcut way is that you can use the this thing like this using the curly braces. So what is an object in JavaScript?
Having the different properties in different type of data. But in array we have same type of data.
You don't need an array does not need to have same kind of data. There is not a requirement. It's not like C. So you can have one. You can also have an object inside it.
It's a variable that holds more than one data.
Array also holds more than one data. Yes. So in objects you have information stored as key value. So, or you can say a property name and a property value. So to create an object using literal expression, you say like if it was a person, it can be named something Murphy, age something 21. Okay. So this is an object. And if you want to add a new field to an object, then how can you do it? You can say
New person.
hmm?
New person.
So it's not a class, it's it's an object, it's an instance of something. So you can just say like country USA or something. You can also use this expression. Okay. So this object has 4 properties now. 2 properties were added when we created this object using literal expression, and then we assign new properties. And if I do this, how many properties will it have now? What will be the value of country?
So it's a Denmark should be.
So will it remember that it was USA? So since it's a key value, like it works like a key value stored. So against a key you put a value, but if you want to put a new value against the same key, it will get replaced. So here I am updating the country from USA to Denmark, and I could have used this expression also. So if your key does not have a space, you can use this. But if your key has a space, like person, if you want to store first name like this, I don't know what should be the last name anyway. So then you cannot do it like this. This is incorrect code. This will not work because there is a space. So what JavaScript will see that person dot first and it's something called name and then a string. Okay. So if you have a space in your key, then you can use a string with this syntax, square brackets. But generally, if you are creating a data structure, it should not have spaces in the name. So you should store it like this instead. First name. Okay. It's more. It's like a better approach. Right. So this is a person object, and he was saying that if I have to create, so suppose you want to have a class person, like a factory, which gives you an object, and every time you call you want to have something, it will give you a new object. So suppose I want to implement a function called person factory. Okay, and then it returns me an object, and it has a method who am I, where it says, so you can have functions as name, hopefully it will work. So let us say who am I is a function. Okay, and yeah, now it works. So this object has one property and it has a method, and inside this method I am saying this, I am using this keyword, and this refers to the object. Okay, so there is this a keyword called this. Have you heard about this? Have you heard about this thing called this? So if you have a function and you say this refers to the function, and inside the object this refers to the object. So I think this is also a correct syntax. Who am I? So who am I is this thing, and if I want to say, so it can be that I have a property called name here, but I just say get name is a method with which returns then it becomes a closure that this object has two properties, get name, and let us say it also has set name, and if you do that it will set the property that if it gets a value it will go and change this name to new name. So it has three properties, and if I call who am I, it will be undefined by default, right? What happened? Unexpected token. So by default it's undefined, and if I say new person dot set name to a new fancy name, and if I call get name a new fancy name, right? This was not working, but if I say who am I, it will not return anything because this refers to the object and this object does not have a name property. But you can do this. So here we have, this is like a closure because there are some properties associated with this object. Like this object has some methods, and if you call one of those methods, they access a variable called name, but this name is not a part of this object, but name is available in a scope under which this object was created.
So if we create a one variable within like that name.
So a closure is basically there is a function, you create some variables inside the function, and then you return something, and that return something has access to the variables defined in that scope. So if I am returning an object here, this object will have access to these variables. If I return a new function, that function will have access to these variables. This is scope.
But within the function variable, the other functions cannot access this variable. Like we have made two functions under here, like get name and the set name.
Yeah.
We define two variables in the get name and in the set name.
Yeah.
Then the variable in the set name is not accessible by the get name.
No, because they are in different scope.
Okay,
but both of them share this scope, right? Yeah. From here till here.
But we cannot access within the functions variable. If we let name, we declare a let name. We create one another element like age. This age and name is accessible throughout its scope.
Yeah.
But in a get name, if we create a one variable, it will not access to the.
No. So if you say let
Yes.
b equal 1, and if you return b, it will not work because this function has a different scope and this function has a different scope.
B has only.
So b is limited to this thing.
Okay.
But if I had b equals 1 to 3, then this also knows about a b which is here, and this knows about a b which is here.
So what is the good thing with the closures?
Closures, the good thing is that, like in this case, the good thing is that no one can do new person dot name equals whatever, but it will not, the behavior will not change, so they don't have access to this property. So if they say dot name equals something, so the get name will still return this thing because you are changing the name property, but the behavior of this object does not depend on name property. It depends on a name variable which was defined here, right? So if you want to have a protected property, something which others cannot change, outside world cannot know.
It means that we hide the data to the
Yeah.
outside.
Yes. 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 So you are hiding something. So it says a new fancy name here, and it does not change it too. But if I had to implement like if this get name was this dot name, then basically it's accessing the property of the object. So there is one use of closures, and so what all can you have as value in an object?
Huh?
What all can you put as value in some object? Like I have put a function, you can put integers, you can put anything. You can put a new another object as the value in one object. Okay? And everything is an object in JavaScript, most of the things. So if I have written something, new person factory, and if I like let us say I do person 1 and then person 2, and if I want to see if person 1 is equal to person 2 or not, what will I get?
It's a true.
Hmm?
Return true.
It will return false because you are returning a new object every time, and two objects are not same. You are calling that function two times. So even if both of them have same properties, right? So let us say if I was just returning age equal 1 to 3. So both objects have just one property, age, So both of them just have one property age, and it has the same value, but they refer to two different objects. So they are two different. They refer to two different locations in the memory. So if you use triple equal, it will say that no, I can't. And if you use double equal, but you should always use triple equal.
It's the same with the arrays also.
Yeah. So if it's the same object in the memory, then you will get equality. But here we have two different objects. What else? So are you getting that I have created something which is in the memory, and here we have two methods. They have access to that variable, but it's not available to outside world. It's not available outside this person factory. Okay. So this closure thing can be used to have, like, suppose you want to implement something called shopping cart, right? So so let us say I'm going to create shopping cart. Okay, what does the shopping cart have?
It's like shopping list.
Hmm?
Shows like shopping list.
and and what all can you do in a shopping cart? You can clear it, and when you clear, what will happen? It should have a new array, right? Then you can have a property includes. If shopping cart includes something or not, it will return boolean. And what will happen here? Basically includes some item or not. Shopping list dot includes. So you can just call the method on the array, right? You can add new item. Then what will happen?
Can we use analysis of after push?
Dot push. Then you can say get all. And it can return a new array with all the items, but it will return a new array. So
this three dots.
this is a spread operator. So I will talk about it, but let us say I am returning a new array from old array. Okay, so I am saying that it will have same items, but it will be a new array. So then we can have a card like this, and then we can add something. And you can add another card dot get all. So this is working like just like you have an array, then array has a method from and things like those. Now you have something and you can call these methods, right? Card dot add, card dot get all. Then you can say that I will just go and clear this thing and get all after that. It will be a let. So when you clear and then say get all, it gives you an empty array. So using closure you can implement something and you can make sure that users of this closure function, you can decide what would be the behavior, like which for which thing do you have access. So if someone calls a method, like if someone says get all and then they get a list of items, and if they say dot items, like because it's an array, and if they do dot push on that array, it will not change the card. If they want to change card, they have to use dot add method. So if I return a new array from here, if they change something in that new array, it will not affect our shopping list array, right? So I have an object which has a memory and I can do things. I can have methods. Hmm. I can like add something, clear something.
After clear, it will the array will clear, the shopping list will clear, and we cannot get again these attributes or the
No, the
items.
clear will dot clear is just going to
Empty
set it to a
the-
new, and then you can again add.
yeah.
Like you can go again and add this, and then if you call, it will have milk in the shopping cart. Hmm?
So the basic purpose is that we hide the data outside its scope.
Yeah, so
And
so it's a scope which exists somewhere, but no one has access to that scope except this object. So, or if you are returning a function like the way we did in this assignment, like we are returning a new function, and this function has access to n, but no one else has access to n. So it has its own memory, right? You will get to do more of these things that you will implement a function, it will have some property, it will have some methods and all. You will do that in Node.js classes. And you will also learn about classes in JavaScript, about the class keyword, like how to implement a new, like when you are saying that new person, so it can be like this. I can, like the same code can be written like class shopping cart, and then it can have like method shopping list equals something, and then it can have methods. So you have a constructor, and there are this dot shopping list equals, and then you can have these things here. Like you can have a function called clear, which will do something. Then you can have a function called includes and things like those. And then the way to use this class is that you say const cart equal new shopping cart. So classes were introduced few years back, and you will learn about them in coming classes. Okay, and there is an old way to implement classes, but you don't need to worry about all that, like prototype and everything. So whenever you need to use those concepts, someone will teach them to you.
Also, it's moves in the JS.
Yeah, so this is like you have a class, you can have multiple objects of this class. So whenever you create a new array, you get an instance of array, and that has a method called map, a method called filter, and there are a lot of methods, right? Similarly, you can implement your own classes, and they will have methods. So this using object, like I am basically it's an object, but it has some methods also, right? So every time you want to get a new shopping cart, instead of saying new shopping cart, you are going to call this method, and it will give you something with default settings, and then it will have some methods. And if you call those methods, you can change some data, and you can retrieve it. So if before having classes, people were using closures to have this kind of behavior. But closures will have different use cases, and like this is one use case. Hmm. So, if you want to look at some like an object with a lot more things, you can github.com. Hmm. So here they have here they have a car object. It has properties like doors. It has 5 doors. Color is white. Top speed 140. Manufacturer is another object, and that object has a property name Toyota. And then it has a start method, and what it does is that it returns you a string car has started, and current speed is 0. If you say increase speed, what is the value, and it will go and this dot current speed plus equals increase. So they are using this keyword.
So this keyword.
So this will refer to the object.
Whole object.
Yeah. And then they have used template literals here, that description. So they are returning a new string with this is a red Toyota, something like that. So this is a white Toyota, it would be the default string. But if you change the value of color and manufacturer, it will print something else. So if I just run this thing, this is a white Toyota, it says, right? And if I like it has a default speed of 0, and I have increased speed by 10 and then by 12, so the current speed would be 22. So it looks like that if you have, so as you can see, an object can contain integers, strings, or another object as value, or it can have methods, functions as methods, and those functions can access the value of the object, other fields of the object, by using this keyword. So Description is referring to color and manufacturer dot name, and this refers to the object itself. So when you say this dot color, so one property is using other property, and you can do that if you're using functions or methods or something.
With this keyword, we can only access the top like door, color, total speed.
No, if you don't use this, then it does not know about color, because color is not a variable. Color is a property of this object.
Through this we can
Yeah.
access these properties. But if some variables are in the callback function, like there is a start, current speed.
It's not a callback something. It's just a method on this object.
Okay. So this can we can.
So basically, you can also say this dot star. So you can make a function call. You can call another method. You can say this dot increase speed by 20. So one method is calling another method.
So no, my question is that if same like in the closures, there is a one. This is in a description. There is an anonymous function. If we declare some variables in this.
But this is not a closure. This is a car object declared in the global scope. And here I am returning another object that stores everything in a variable outside that object. You will learn more about this, okay? But you should be aware that there are these things, and maybe read more about it. You can. I will send you some links about objects in JavaScript. Okay.
Instead of reading like videos instead of
Videos
from YouTube.
So you can go here, fun function.
Okay.
It's a very famous YouTube channel, and just search here for. So this has a series of videos on objects, examples of this and bind and this, like object creation, prototype, composition over inheritance, and lot of things. So this guy is really good at explaining things. Fun function. Okay, he quit his full time work and now he just does this. So but sometimes like reading is boring, I agree. But if you want to really understand, like promise has a method called all and how it works and what are different options, then you need to go and refer to the original documentation. And sometimes if you read 2-3 different blog posts, so everyone will write in a different style, so you get to understand the same thing. So this was about objects, and I used some closures example also. And next we will do some promises, and then if we have time, we will do a quiz. Okay, everyone has a smartphone and laptop, right?